Hello, welcome back to another video. My name's Gemma and I had a cracking reading month in December. So I read 14 books and DNF'd one, but 12 of the 14 that I finished were 4-star and above. It was a really good reading month. It did make ranking the books somewhat difficult, as you will see as we go through, because there's some really good books that rank low because I just read so many great books. But yeah, let's have a chat about them, shall we? So the one that I DNF'd was 15 Wild Decembers by Karen Powell. This has been nominated for the Nero Award, which is a brand new award this year, and I was really interested to follow it, but this is the second DNF I've had from the list. I DNF'd one from the middle grade section and now I've DNF'd this one from the fiction section. And this book should have been Gemma Catnip. It's about the Bronte sisters and sort of the very sad childhood that they had growing up, and sort of, I think, how they sort of created this fictional world and became writers effectively. That sounds all very me, but I got a few hours into the audiobook and it was fine, but I just didn't really care, you know? And it was getting to the end of the year and I was like, I don't want to read average books. And so I DNF'd it. So yeah, I didn't get that far into it, so that may be unfair. I'd love to know if you've given it a whirl, but it was just a bit meh for me. So moving into the books that I actually finished, in 14th place, the worst book of December, and a book that took me 9 months to read, Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevski. So, I started buddy reading this book with Alice and the Giant Bookshelf and Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot in March. Was it March? April, March time. It's so long ago, I can't even remember. And we were supposed to finish it in a month. I finished it on like the 30th of December. And I was really disappointed. This is my first Russian classic and it's kind of put me off. So yeah, if you also disliked Crime and Punishment but you've liked other Russian classics, then I'd love to know what they are, because at the moment I'm just staying away from that area of literature. So this one follows a guy who basically decides he wants to have a go at killing someone to see what happens, because he thinks it's really cool. Like, yeah. And okay, so the first section where he's contemplating this murder, I thought was good. I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the epilogue, which is 2 chapters, because of course Dostoyevsky has a 2-chapter epilogue. However, there was a massive section in the middle which was quite fever dreamy and very philosophical and just very waffly. Very waffly. I also found the names quite difficult because people would have like 2 different names, like a nickname and a not nickname, a real name, and the real names were like a first name and a surname, and so there were just a lot of Russian names going on, and I kind of got a bit confused with some of the characters, especially if the names sort of began with the same letter. So yeah, in conclusion, Crime and Punishment was not a book for me. I didn't enjoy it. I pushed through it because it's on the scratch list, and yeah, it's going to be a long time before I try another Dostoyevsky or Russian classic author in general. Sad times. Okay, I've just realised that I've somehow missed a book from my list. So I actually read 15. Read 15 in December. So bear with me, my numbers are a little out. Okay, so in 14th position then, and I feel like I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which is a book that everybody loves. Okay, so this is a dystopian book. It feels very COVID-y at the beginning. This flu is going around, it knocks out like a lot of the population, and there's not a lot of people left, and we sort of follow different people before and after the pandemic. And yeah, I enjoyed this book enough. I thought it was fine, but it just was fine. I don't understand the hype. I did think it was quite compelling to read. The writing style was good, but I don't know, maybe it's because there were like several different characters, but I never really felt like I got to know any of them, even though we spent time in their past. So I don't really know what Mandel could have done to improve that situation. I just don't think Emily St. John Mandel is an author for me. I've also read The Glass Hotel by her, which I really didn't like. So I've got one meh and one dislike. I just think she's not for me. So I'm sorry to everyone who loves this book, but I just thought it was average. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then, in at 13th place, and now we really are into 4-star territory. So every book now I enjoyed. But we have The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And again, I know this is a booktube darling. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Don't come for me because it's so far down my list. But this is a very quiet novel, and we follow a butler and a housekeeper. Well, we follow a butler, first person perspective from the butler. And we see his sort of interactions with a housekeeper in the large house that he is butler at. And it sort of takes place over a few days when he goes for a trip in the car to see this housekeeper who left the employment of the house many years ago. And we sort of see him reflecting back on his life, on his relationship with her, and on his relationship with the sort of master of the house. And it's a really interesting novel. I buddy read this with Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and we did have some really interesting conversations about unreliable narrators and World War II and what different people did in that time. It's kind of a little bit difficult to explain because it's a really slow novel that you just pick up these threads of interest from. And I really did like it. I thought the ending was really melancholy, I think is the best way to describe it. It wasn't like crying sad, but it was just like, oh. So I liked it. It made me feel something, so that is good. And I'm really interested to try more of Ishiguro's work. So yes, that was a success. In 12th position, we have 1984 by George Orwell, which was a reread for me. I really like this book. This is a great dystopian novel. It has some really fantastic themes in it where we're set in a dystopian world, I suppose, where everything is governed by a dictatorship run by Big Brother. And I don't really feel like I need to talk about the synopsis of this. This is like one of the world's most famous books. And I do really enjoy it, but I found it dry in places. There is a specific section where our main character, Winston, reads from a book, and it's really dull. Like the whole section could just be cut out and my life would be better. I actually read this immediately before reading the retelling, Julia by Sandra Newman, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book. I can't, it's 4 stars. I liked it, but it's just a tad dry in places. In at number 11, we have Hello Mum by Bernadine Evaristo. This is a super short novella, short story novella about a young boy in London who's writing a letter to his mum about how he became embroiled in street gangs and gang warfare. This, I thought, was a pretty accurate portrayal. I thought it was well done. Some of the, I don't know, I couldn't help thinking when reading it, because Evaristo includes sort of like London street language, but I knew it was being written by like an older woman, so some of it grated a little bit on me. It was like trying to be cool. So there was an element of that to it, but it was really, really good. It actually reminded me a lot of the film Kidulthood. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I'll try and put like the postery thing here. But if you are interested in that side of things, how kids get involved in that, particularly children from perhaps poorer black neighbourhoods, Kidulthood, you have to watch that film. It's so good. I don't know if it's really watched outside of the UK. It's not like a super popular film. It's like an independent jobby, I think, but it's really, really good. You should watch it. So yes, I've recommended you a film to go with that very short novella. In 10th spot, we have The Grey King by Susan Cooper. This is the 4th in the Darkest Rising sequence, and I really enjoyed this one. This one's set in Wales, and we are back with one of our main characters from The Darkest Rising. And yeah, I can't tell you too much because it's the 4th one, but things are ramping up with the dark and the light, and it was just brilliant. I really liked the setting for this one. There was also like a little section at the beginning about where one of the characters was talking to our main character about how to pronounce Welsh words, which I thought was really fun. And yeah, I liked it a lot. So I'm really looking forward to getting to the final book in that series, which I think is called The Silver on the Tree, something like that. In at 9th position, we have Minor Detail by Adania Shibli, and this is translated. Where's the translator? Oh, translated by Elisabeth Jaquette. It doesn't actually tell me what language, but I would assume Arabic. Shibli is a Palestinian author. So this felt very prevalent given the times that we are in, and I read this for my work book club. This was hard-hitting but quiet at the same time. It's like a really weird mix. So it's split into 2 parts, and the first part is told from the perspective of an Israeli soldier. And we see in minor detail, sort of how he conducts his day, the like little rituals that he has, and then he takes a prisoner, a female prisoner, and we sort of see what happens to her. It's a time of war, right? So yeah, I won't say any more. So that section is set in 1949, just a year after the war between Israel and Palestine, where there's still a lot of friction. We then fast forward 20 years and we follow a young woman who is sort of living under the new regime that war caused, and we see how she lives, and that was pretty eye-opening for me because it almost reads as a dystopian, the way that the Palestinian people live, not allowed to go into certain sections of the cities, and they have to have permits to leave. And yeah, it's quite disturbing in many ways. That is just one of them. But anyway, this woman sort of discovers the story of this woman from the first section and tries to investigate that herself. So you've got these 2 very different perspectives on one key event that happened in the war. And it was just, I don't think I've ever really read anything quite like it. It was really moving, really eye-opening, and sort of tries to highlight the atrocities of war that get just ignored because in the grand scheme of things, they are minor. So yeah, really, really thought-provoking book. Highly recommend. Next, we have a graphic novel, very much lighter tone now. So this is in 8th position. We have Lightfall, The Girl and the Galdurian by Tim Probert. And I saw this on several people's channels last year, Best Books of the Year, I think. And I've been meaning to pick it up ever since, and I got to it in December. So this is just a lovely story about a girl whose adoptive father just disappears one day, and she's really, really worried about him, and she bumps into this Galdurian in the woods, and they sort of set off on an adventure to find out what's happened. And they live in a world where they have sort of false light because the light was stolen. And yeah, it was just really, really lovely. I really, really enjoyed this. I definitely enjoyed the artwork, which was just stunning all the way through. I love like foresty vibes. And so, yeah, it really worked for me. And this is the first in a trilogy, so I'm going to be trying to get my hands on the other two as soon as I can. But unfortunately, I got this out from the library, and the next two aren't available at my library. So I might have to spend some real life pennies. Next up, we have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And this was the FOMO book club pick for November and December. I run the FOMO book club with Jaquette Spread Bookjoy and Alice at Alice on the Giant Bookshelf, and all the details are linked below. I will also leave the live chat for this book, though they are spoiler filled, so if you haven't read it yet, wait till you've read it before you watch that video. And this was fab. We're in the mind of a very disturbed young girl who lives in a grand house, and we know something bad has happened in the past. At the beginning of the book, we don't really know what that is. We discover that quite quickly, and then things start to escalate when someone arrives at the house. And it was just really well written. Being in the head of this girl, there was a lot of reference to sort of fairy tale, myth, almost magic, but not really magic. Yeah, it was just really fabulous. If you never tried Shirley Jackson, you really should. I was very impressed. It is on the quieter side. It's not like a super action-filled book until the end, but it's just the way that you're in this girl's head is just really, really impressive. So the more I think about it and the more I talk about it, the more I like this book. So yes, that was a win. And my last 4-star read for the month, so in 6th position, was Saga Volume 4 by Brian K. Vaughn. But my 4.5-star that comes in 5th position is Saga Volume 5. There wasn't much between them. I just enjoyed 5 slightly more than 4. But I'm just adoring this series. This is a sci-fi graphic novel series about sort of lovers from different sides of a war who have a baby. That baby narrates their story about what happens to their family over the course of the series of books. And it's just brilliantly done. The different species in this are fantastic. One of the sort of enemy species have like computers for heads. It sounds weird, but it's so good. It's the way it's done, the way the art and the prose sort of come together is just outstanding. The artist is Fiona Staples, and yeah, I just can't wait to pick up Volume 6 because they're so good, so good. We then move to 4th position, and we have another graphic novel. I was clearly in a graphic novel mood, but how could I not read Heartstopper Volume 5, like the second it came out? I think this came out on like the 7th. I bought it and read it on the 9th. And this is following the love story of Nick and Charlie, 2 young boys at high school who are just trying to figure out life and themselves and what relationships are and what a gay relationship is and what their own identity is and how they have their own identity and an identity as a couple, and it's just super sweet. And in this one, Nick is starting to consider university and what his options are, and should he go away or should he stay close to home, and Charlie's in the year below him. So what is going to happen with Charlie? So yeah, I thought this was great, and I think it is a real struggle for a lot of teenagers. I know that when I left to go to university, I was in a relationship, and that was hard because I went 2 hours away, and I'm not with that guy anymore, so it didn't work out very well for us. But yeah, it's a real problem for young people, and I think it's good that they know that they're not the only ones dealing with that. So yeah, loved it. Then we move to third position, and we have The Kite Runner by Khaled. Oh, a bit shiny. Which is a book I've been saying that I will read pretty much since I started my booktube channel, and I've read it. I've actually read it. This was devastating. We follow a young boy, Amir, we follow him in two timelines. So we follow him as an adult, sort of looking back at his childhood and his relationship with Hassan. So they are from different castes, and Amir is the upper caste and Hassan is the lower caste. And you see them as young boys being friends, not really knowing that that's an issue. And as they grow up, how that changes, and also just the difference in personality between them and how that affects the course of their lives. And it was devastating. Absolutely devastating. It talks about the invasion of Afghanistan by Russia and the rise of the Taliban, and yeah, basically how a beautiful country was completely decimated by war. And yeah, everyone who said I should read this, they were right. It was so good. So moving to my second favourite book of December, and that was Julia by Sandra Newman. This I referred to earlier is a retelling of 1984, but from the perspective of Julia, who is the sort of love interest from 1984. And so we get an awesome feminist look at what this world could have been like for a woman. I did do a solo review for this, so I'll leave it below. I won't go into too much detail, but mate, it was excellent. It was excellent. I really think this has Women's Prize written all over it, and I feel like I need to check out more work by Sandra Newman because it was excellent. And then my best book of the month, and my only 5-star read, was Best Served Cold by Jo Abercrombie. So if you've checked out my best books of the year, you'll know this made it to the list. And this is the first standalone after the original First Law trilogy, which is a grimdark fantasy series. And I really enjoyed seeing Abercrombie write a standalone story. So he had to build characters and plot all in the space of this 600-page book, and he did it masterfully. I absolutely love the characters. I love the layout. We follow this band of characters around the First Law world, and each sort of section takes place in a different place, and has a specific mission attached to it without giving too much away. And it was just, I loved the layout. It was beautifully linear. And sometimes you just want linear, right? I know that all this dual timeline stuff is great, but sometimes you just want a linear story that runs nicely. And this was that. Fabulous, kick-ass female character as the lead. Yeah. What more can you want from a fantasy novel? Nothing is the answer. So if you are new to Jo Abercrombie, I do think you will get more out of this book by reading the First Law trilogy first. But you could read that one as a standalone, I think, and still really, really enjoy it. So, but it would have mild spoilers for the original trilogy, FYI. And that's everything that I read in December. So what was your best book of December? What was your worst book of December? And if you're interested in seeing the other books, apart from Best Served Cold, that made my best books of the year, I will leave that video here. If you made it to the end of this very, very long video, then give me a kite emoji for finally finishing the Kite Runner. And I will see you all very soon with another one. Bye, guys.